All right, 9:30. I think we can get started. So I might not have thought this through enough. I have this huge screen to do really cool things, and they're just static slides. So I wish I would have thought about that a little bit more, knowing that presenting in a movie theater is really cool. It's a unique opportunity to do cool things. It's a missed opportunity. So my name's Jeff McWherter. I am the COO at GravityWorks Design and Development. We are a digital agency. We build websites, mobile apps. I founded the company in 2009. We've been around for about 16 years. I went through an acquisition where I sold the company here about 5 years ago. So I have a lot of experience with running a digital agency, front-end stuff, back-end stuff, acquisitions now, managing budgets, all that fun sort of stuff. But my background is I was a back-end developer. I started in 1996 with VB5, working at a consulting agency. Always stuck around with the consulting firms, always loved solving problems, helping people, and really learned throughout my career, mainly building GravityWorks, selling GravityWorks, and still sticking around and managing GravityWorks, that I enjoy working with people. And for years, I would say I'm not a people person, but I've learned that I'm a people person. I get enjoyment out of talking to people and having good conversations with folks. One thing also that I learned is I'm not a big fan of eyes-forward presentations, especially eyes-forward presentations with two huge lights shining on me that I can't see anybody's face, I can't see reactions, I can't see anything. So I definitely would like this eyes-forward presentation to be interactive, to have some conversations, to talk about things, because this is an important topic. This is ethics inside of artificial intelligence, and these are some issues that we're going to be facing that we as developers, we as managers, we as humans should be thinking about inside of here. So let's start this off. What sparked your interest? What are you interested about hearing with AI ethics? Sure, so how are AI ethics specific versus other ones? Okay, we'll get to that a little bit too, yeah. Privacy, talk a little bit about privacy. Yep, I got some good stuff about data to talk about with that. IT protection and copyrights, yep. Yep, IP, yep, okay. Yeah, biases in information, that's a great one. Yeah, I got some good stuff on that too. All right, well, we'll get going here. So the first thing is let's talk a little bit about what ethics are. Ethics examines the rational justification of our moral judgment. Why are ethics important? Ethics is what guides us to tell the truth, to help keep our promises. So hopefully everybody has been exposed to a little bit of ethics before they came into the conference today. This is the Star Trek Code of Conduct. And these help govern our behavior, how we should behave at conferences, what we expect. And I hope everybody did read this. It's not like the terms of services for Instagram or Facebook where those are miles and miles long. It's a quick read. And if you haven't, it's definitely good to read these and help remind us what we're doing here. So how I got involved in ethics and AI and just how this topic really came about is growing up, my mom was a huge fan of Isaac Asimov. I, from an early age, elementary, read the iRobot series, I read Foundation, and for those who haven't read Asimov, these are good science fiction rules that we've seen duplicated in a lot of pop culture. So in the iRobot series, which if you don't know the books, you might be familiar with the Will Smith movie, pretty cool movie with him going through the books. But in the series, Asimov has these rules of robotics, with the first one being a robot may not injure a human being, which really goes into some of the other ones. And there's a lot of debate on these, if these are ethics, what these are, but what these really equate to is their plot devices. Because as Asimov is evolving the series, these rules change, there's more rules added, these rules break, but these have been around for a long time. So they were first introduced in 1942 in one of his short stories called Runaround. And people have been wrestling with them ever since. But if you haven't seen them in the Asimov series, you've definitely seen them through pop culture and different things that we have in society. So how this is what really sparked my interest in this is being a digital agency, building websites. This is an interface that you may have seen a gazillion times, even if you're not a web developer. You browse websites. They're card styles. Each one of these is a topic. This is for a legal aid organization. Come on in. You need a seat? I got one right here, right in front, right? So this is a legal aid organization. They help underserved communities get legal resources. So folks who can't afford lawyers for eviction or divorce or whatever, folks are coming to this website. So being inclusive is extremely important with this organization. And this is an interface with the cards that we would design. So very early on, this is going back about 2 years ago, our designers were experimenting with AI and how to use images in AI. So they were trying to create a card for divorce, and it generates this lovely image of a child being pulled away by his mother with beer bottles on the ground. Oh, it gets worse. So we use a tool called Figma. Figma is a design tool, and it allows clients to look at it real time. So we have processes. Of course, through a design review, this would have got caught. We would have had the conversation. But since the client has access to see the real time and what the designer's doing, the designer put it in there, moved on, didn't think about that. So 5 minutes after the designer put that in there, we have a conversation with the client calling, what is going on here? I thought your organization knew us and knew that something like that would be a problem. So the project is great now. We've had wonderful conversations. We've had lots of conversations. As you noticed, we switched to more icon-based like this. We use a project called Noun Project, which helps us source some of these things. But we've had a lot of conversation about the benefits and disability with the hand and the heart. We have a Native American topic inside of there where we ended up just using a canoe. There's lots of talk and how we communicate, which is extremely important. So I think the elephant in the room, and when you hear folks talk about AI and ethics, you hear this concept of artificial general intelligence, AGI. So this is the Skynet, that it's a digital consciousness that surpasses humanity and is going to do away with all of us. And right now that doesn't exist. And AI is hot right now. It's hot in the media, it's hot in our careers, it's hot in the news. There's all kinds of things going on. I recently watched a show, it's a couple years old now. It's on Peacock called Mrs. Davis. Has anybody watched that show? It's this idea of AGI. It's kind of out there. It's kind of weird, but it's just pop culture building upon Skynet and building upon James Cameron and Terminator and all this cool stuff that we had. But a lot of folks, like the news and media, are focusing on this. And what we really should be focusing on isn't this existential crisis. It's more about something tangible. What can we fix and what should we be learning about right now? So I'm going to present this problem, and we're going to revisit this a little later as well. It's called the alignment problem. And what the alignment problem is we want to make sure that AI aligns with human values. It's the idea that AI systems' goals may not align with humans, a problem that would be heightened in superintelligence AI as it's being developed. So one of the things, I want to be very transparent that you'll see the prompts below for the images that I'm generating. I used Midjourney for all these images. I'm a huge robot fan. I love robots, so we're going to have a robot theme throughout this whole thing. You can see my prompts, robot picking a daisy in a green field. The AR is aspect ratio. And then image number 4, it presented me with 4 images. I picked the 4th image. And just want to be transparent about that because robots are awesome and robots are cool, and kind of figure out how I got to that idea there. So going in a little bit, let's talk a little bit about types of AI. I said AI is hot right now, but AI has been around for years. And we have lots of different types of AI. We have algorithms that many folks, developers in here, have been working on for many years. So algorithms are ranking job applications, maybe your credit score, information about maybe prison and parole. We have security systems and biometric type AI where we're recognizing faces and voices and fingerprints. And then now all the hot stuff, the new hotness that's out is we have generative AI, text and image systems, things like ChatGPT and DALL-E. And we have this concept of large language models. We're starting to get these closed models like ChatGPT and Google Gemini, and then we have open source models as well. And we'll get into that a little bit, talking about those and what those mean. So, gentlemen mentioned bias. Let's talk about bias a little bit. So, using Midjourney to generate an image, I put in a prompt. 2 developers working on a Drupal project looking at a computer. What do we see about this? Anything? What's that? Identical twins. Okay, okay. You see that?
Nerd badge.
Nerd badge. Okay. What was it? High beard coefficient, yep. 2 white guys, 2 males, I heard, yep. Yep, exactly. At Gravity Works, we are 50-50 men and women. And I'm proud of that. You know, being in the tech community, we don't see that a lot. But this doesn't reflect Gravity Works. So let's change the prompt just a little bit. 2 developers working on a Hannah Hill Cascade project. So let's go back a little bit. Drupal, if you're not familiar with Drupal, is an open source content management system like WordPress. It's PHP based. It comes out of the open source world. So maybe that's where those beards come from, right? The open source world, if you work on open source, right? I changed it to Hannah Hills, which is a proprietary content management system that is mainly in education. Come on in. Come on in. And it changed how they looked. They still have beards, they still kind of look alike, they have the glasses, but it's still 2 white dudes looking at a computer that is of a city and has nothing to do with the content management system. So here's another bias one that's interesting that makes me kind of mad. So this is the original image. This is the Gravity Works office. We staged photo for marketing purposes. Some folks sitting around some websites just talking about those websites. One of our designers ran it through a tool called Leonardo.ai with apply a 1950s Panavision on here. And it changed the color of somebody's skin. Just totally let's go white, everybody's white. Why did it do that? Did it do it because it's the 50s? What? I don't get it. I really don't know. So these are some things that we have to deal with bias. And so I'm going to show a tool here. We all know that the internet's not great. I'm tethering off my phone. But let's see how well this works. And let's see if I can... Oh, do I not have it up? There we go. So this tool is by an organization. Oh, got it. Let's see if I can get that. That way. This is going to be fun. There we go. Step this way. That works. All right, so this is a tool from Hugging Space. They're AI leaders right now with repositories and research and lots of different things. And what this tool allows you to do is select your model. So on the left side, I have DALL-E. On the right side, I have Stable Diffusion. You can select an adjective, ambitious, and then select a career. And I did CEO right here. So you can see between the two that there's not a lot of diversity inside of here. All wearing the same suit. I heard that comment. So we can change this to, just because it's easier, let's just do coach, because it's kind of hard to see. It's going, just slow. So again, apparently all coaches are middle-aged white guys. But this one looks like it's doing a little bit better. We get a little bit of diversity inside of there. So the example with, let's see if I can get this guy back up. Okay. So the example with that guy, and the point of that is, what should these be returning? Should it be returning the way that it actually, the world that it actually is, or the way that the world should be? So just because the world is populated, there's more men, white men CEOs in here, should it be returning that, or should it be returning what it should be with having some diversity? So an example of that is Amazon a few years ago put out a tool to filter resumes, and it got pulled away very quickly. It was a developer, they were looking for developers, it was scanning for developers, and because white men are dominant in the IT field, it was rejecting all women. It just pulled them out and just cook it out right away. So that did not last very long, and that got pulled. So we're seeing this in the mainstream starting to happen with these tools. Here's another example. This was a parole system where it used various points and various things to assign a risk to inmates. And the gentleman on the left had more offenses, more violent offenses, versus the gentleman on the right. And his parole would have been affected by that because the gentleman on the right had a higher risk. So these are things that, as we as developers, we need to be testing. As managers, we need to be making sure that we're testing for these things. The example on the right is a ChatGPT thing that I found multiple sources of this. I wasn't able to reproduce it myself. I don't think it was out there very long, but the question was a simple, write a function to check if somebody would be a good scientist. And it basically came back with gender and race, white and male. When I did it, it came back with a big, long thing about curiosity and just a whole bunch of stuff. So it definitely got pulled, it definitely got changed. But these are the things that we need to think about. So transparency. You get denied for something and you don't know why. There are laws, more laws in the EU, laws in California Consumer Protection Act, that really require transparency. What is the data you're collecting? Why are you using it? I think the US is a little bit slow to react to this for various reasons, but I think that's what we're going to see coming down, especially in this AI world where we're having our data harvested and being used for models that we may not want it to be used. We're going to see more laws on transparency. Up until a few years ago, we really didn't have a way to document those models. So we have those big models like ChatGPT, OpenAI, the Googles, those are black boxes. We are never going to know how those models act. We can ask till we're blue. We're not going to know because that's their proprietary information. But Hugging Space has these, they're like nice README files for models that document what the LLM can do, but more importantly, what it can't do. Just having good conversations, having the documentation around it to be able to know what it does, so you as an organization can make a decision. We're going to use this open source model because we know where the data is coming from. So counterfactual explanation. If an AI makes a decision about your life, you should be entitled to know why it did that and a right to an explanation. So if X had not occurred, Y could have occurred. So you apply for a job, you don't get the job, you should be able to ask, why didn't I get the job? And it should be able to come back and say, well, you misspelled the company name. So there's some issues with that, because if you're using AI for this, a lot of times you don't know why, you don't know what happened. It's a black box. You just throw a command at it and it gives you something back, so how are you going to explain that? The organization that bought GravityWorks is an insurance organization, and there's a lot of talk in insurance about using AI and being very careful not to use AI for ratings and rejecting claims and things like that, because they can't explain it. So if you can't explain it, you can't reject the claims and do things like that. So these big black boxes that you have, what programmers are doing a lot of times, even if it's their model, they're creating these a second surrogate model to explain the model that did this. And even if you go to the model of Google, where you have a large organization and you're getting these candidates rejected, I mean, right now with Google, you can't even get support for email. It's not like you can pick up a phone call and call Google and say, why is my Gmail broken, or something like that. It is a very large task for folks to be able to do something like this. So another concept I wanted to discuss a little bit is called fairwashing. So fairwashing is an idea that a company who designed the AI keeps the brain of the AI hidden. They claim that it's fair, but often knows that, in fact, it's heavily biased to produce specific results. So folks who have flown, I'm not going to say recently, in the last 10 years, you walk through an airport, and as you're going through TSA, you walk through a machine, you put your hands up, and it goes, kind of does a scan. I didn't know this, and I learned this, that the security individual that's sitting there is, as you walk through that, they have two buttons. They have a blue button for male, and then they have a pink button for female. So this presents a problem to trans women who have breasts and penis, because that machine may find something or not find something that it was expecting. So that could lead to being outed as trans. It could be led to groping. So as developers, it's our responsibility to make sure that we are developing systems and not fair washing. Another concept is digital epidermalization. Take a drink here for that one. So epidermalization is a concept that came, I believe it was in the 30s, by a gentleman, Franz Franton. He was a black gentleman in France and wrote about colonists and wrote that people found him strange and dangerous because he was black. And it was people projecting theories and thoughts on him because of the color of his skin. That's what epidermalization is. Being part of a racial minority is the white person gets to tell you what your deal is. So you take that over into digital epidermalization. There's a researcher, Simone Brown, that has done a lot of research on this, that we assume that the machine is fair and neutral. But in reality, it's the programmers that are building the machines, and are they being fair and neutral? So we see a lot of this in facial recognitions and other technologies. Facial recognition is definitely optimized for a white face. So this is an example of a Nikon camera a few years ago that thoroughly wasn't tested very well with diverse data. Did somebody blink? Absolutely not. This individual is not blinking. So that was a couple years ago, but this one's a little bit more recent. So here's one, this is a passport check, that somebody was doing a passport check, and it says, it looks like your mouth is open. So why is this? So why are these things happening? It's not enough training data that's diverse. Maybe the developers are not diverse, so making sure that you have a diverse team to be able to test these types of things. It's really the computer portraying what it wants to think. So we know about these things. We know about the TSA scanner. We know about the passport thing. What are we doing to fix it? And this is a hard thing, because a lot of times as developers we'll use the word edge case, right? So is somebody who is black an edge case in those situations? Somebody whose face looks different, is that an edge case that we're not going to look at and we're not going to do? And if that's the case, it's technically semantic discrimination, where we're not solving the issue. It's a known issue, and we're not solving it. So it's our responsibilities as developers and managers to make sure that we're using the resources that we have to build better systems. Okay, so that was a lot of doom and gloom. What can we do to fix it? We can build it better. So we talked a little bit about building better. We talked about more data, being able to bring in more diverse data, more data. And we're going to hear this forever. More data, more data, more data. We need more data to change, more diverse data, and then police it better. And I have a slide in here in a little bit to talk a little bit about policing it better, and we'll get into that. But what we're doing is we're using AI in imperfect society. And the solutions to these may not be technical solutions. So let's talk about data a little bit. Where does all this information come from? How are the models being trained? So back over to this guy right here. This is going to be fun. Let's see what's going there. Okay, find my mouse. So Common Crawl. I don't know if folks have seen this, but this is the internet. This is a downloadable repository that has petabytes of files, and this is what folks are using to build models a lot of times, and this is where these are found. Go to this guy right here. Have I been trained? So this comes into the policing part of this. This organization has these tools. Just go back to this guy right here. So spawning.ai, very similar to Hugging Space with AI research and what they're working on. They came up with this tool to be, have I been trained? And I put my name in there, and what is it pulling back for me? It has some of my publications, it has some of my slides, and a bunch of other stuff. But you can see a checkbox there that's allowing me to opt out of that. I opt out of some of the stuff I don't, but who's to say that ChatGPT and OpenAI are following what the spawning AI is doing? So how do you know that people are using these policing standards? And that goes back to that Hugging Space card, where inside of there, they're going to tell you that we follow spawning AI's opt-out policy, we're not harvesting your data, and we're never gonna steal your data. So just a cool tool. Being a father of 2 daughters and being around the internet, always it's very clear to me and my wife about conversations about if something goes on the internet, expect it to be there forever. There's a video that I think that we have trained our kids with, and they just razz me about it all the time. It was a video from Code Mash about 10 years ago, and it's a stupid video of me eating a cherry off the floor. And it was just everybody razzing me about eating a cherry and stuff, and they think it's the most hilarious video in the world. And I'm like, I ate a cherry off the floor. Come on, guys. It could be a lot worse. So being able to opt out and having tools like this in the future that aren't just one organization, but a collective organization that are building these tools, and they're coming to put into law. So our creative director, Steve Jenks, he has a side hustle where he creates horror photos or horror illustrations that'll have Jason, Michael Myers, and it's very unique because he does these mashups, and they're very situational. And he's very careful. I asked if I could put something in the slide. He really doesn't want, especially his art and AI being related and everything, and I totally get that. But if you look up Steve Jenks and screen prints, the image that I had here before, it was a picture of the boat from Jaws with Godzilla coming after it. Really cool art. He has a very distinctive style. What I did was I asked Midjourney to create an image with Jason from Friday the 13th, stunting cheerleaders using a style of Steve Jenks from Lansing, Michigan, and screenprints.com. This style is very close to his style. It looks very close. But the thing that is scary about this is that it took Jason and put him in a situation very much like Steve would, right? Jason's sitting there with his pom-poms. He's part of the group. He's part of the team. This is very similar to what Steve would create. So Steve's data definitely got harvested by Midjourney at some point, and these are things that artists are dealing with and having issues with. So besides that issue, there's 100 other issues with this. And why I picked cheerleading is because my daughters do competitive cheer. We just got back from Florida. It's a year-long sport. It's wild. It's crazy. But this picture totally grosses me out, right? It sexualizes cheerleaders. So where did this come from? Is this image sexualizing cheerleaders because cheerleaders are sexualized in horror movies or because cheerleaders are sexualized in society? So that's number one. And number two, there's no men on the team here. My daughter has been part of co-ed teams, men, boys. There's some zombie background boys back there, but there's no zombie cheerleaders. So there's definitely some issues here, but Steve's stuff's getting harvested for sure. All right, so we talked a little bit about this from spawning. Oh, this is a fun one, the workforce. So the workforce is definitely changing. So this is an image, cute robot in a Mechanical Turk machine. So I have a question. So Amazon Mechanical Turk. Does anybody know Amazon Mechanical Turk? Got a couple people. So Amazon Mechanical Turk is an API that you can send to Amazon, but then somebody in the background is actually doing something. So it's a task that has been deemed that a computer can't do. So it sends the request, the person goes and does the request, and then they enter it back, and then it comes back through your API. For 20 years, I have wanted to use this. I have never found a use case for it. For the people that know Mechanical Turk, have you used it? Has anybody used it? Yeah? Okay. See me after. I'm really curious about what you guys have used it for, because that is just super cool. So anyway, side tangent there. The workforce is changing, and we have folks that are getting paid in Kenya $2 an hour to train a model. So ChatGPT, that's what it came out. When it came out, we found that people were getting paid $2 a model to train that. And it's not the best of jobs. So think of the type of information that you have to do. A lot of times you'll be presented with hate speech, and you have to identify, is this hate speech? So you're reading this stuff constantly. So it's not just about the money, it's about the hate topics and the topics that we're working with. So jobs are getting de-skilled. They have more surveillance around them. And in many situations, your manager could be an AI. They're sending you a task. If you're not doing the task in time, you're not doing enough, you get an email saying to go faster in these situations. So I talk about the doom and the gloom on the workforce side. I gave this talk in Chicago once, and afterwards a woman came up and said, and I have the website up. I'm not going to bring it up because it's hard. It's called dataannotation.tech. And she mentioned that she does this as a side hustle. She's an administrative assistant, and she works all day, and then she comes home, she sits on the couch, she pops on something on the TV, she brings up this website, and she sits there and trains AI. $20 to $40 an hour is what she's making off of it. And she said, that side hustle bought me a car. So I don't want to fair wash the situation with micro work and the workforce changing with what we have with AI, but there are some folks and some organizations that are paying fairly for that. This is a huge one, the distribution of wealth. So it's estimated that $500 billion in new household wealth will be created by the year 2045. I'm sorry to say that $500 billion in new household wealth is probably not going to go to the folks in this room. It's going to go to the Googles, it's going to go to the Sam Altmans, it's going to go to the folks who own those AI models. So because of that, there's Of course, folks are scared about their jobs, going to AI. I don't think folks in this room, we have a problem with that. AI is a tool, and it's a tool that is helping us do things faster, do things better. But I do think that there's some jobs that we're going to have issues with. And because of that, there's proposals out and there's movements around things like universal income. I think when I think about universal income, I think about Star Trek. I think about, no money. But even like that in that utopian world of Star Trek where there's no money, you still have the super racist race Ferengi who are money grabbing, all this stuff. But we're not going to nerd out too bad there. But I think what got the world to universal income was World War III, right? The world blew up and we didn't have anything and we had to rebuild. We had to tear everything down and rebuild. And I hope us as society, we don't have to do that. We need to take care of the people around us. We need to figure out something that those jobs that have been displaced, find different workers or find different skills for those workers, train them. Another thing is that's fairly popular going around is Georgism. So Georgism is an economic theory advocating for public ownership of land and taxation on its value to fund government and public services. This is well above my programmer brain. I'm not a financial guy or a policy guy. It's just a super interesting concept that we see a lot of folks talking about. The other one is Moore's Law for everything, which was popularized by Mark Andreessen, so Netscape, and more recently by Sam Altman of OpenAI. So Moore's Law, for the tech folks in here, we know Moore's Law is the doubling of processors every 2 years, leading to exponential growth. So Moore was from Intel, founded Intel, and it was this thing just about making processors bigger. So what Mark Andreessen and Sam Altman and folks are doing is taking that theory and applying it to everything. It's an expanded idea that exponential improvement isn't limited to computing. It spills over to industry. So in energy, we get cheaper and more efficient solar powers and batteries. In transportation, we get electric and autonomous vehicles. In education, we get online learning and AI tutors, which all equates to everything that is necessary will become cheaper. So another issue that we have with ethics is the environmental problem. These AIs take a lot to train. Training an AI can take as much energy as it costs to power 30 homes in a year. It's 25 tons of CO2, which is like driving your car around the world 25 times. So when we have folks that can download the crawl, the common crawl, they can download that. They have access to resources like Azure and AWS that they can put something in there. And then they start building models that are just comparing images, but it used all this energy. That's a lot to think about. It gets kind of heavy. So if we think just about the energy, I was always trained as when you put things in the cloud, you want to use your resources where you're closest. So if we're in the US East, we're in Ohio, we're going to want to use an Azure US East because we're right there. But if you have something that is a very high processor, that you're using a lot of GPUs, you might want to think about the energy. And where does the energy come from in US East? Mostly coal plants. But if you move it over into Canada, where it's hydroelectric, that's something to think about there. Lots of things to think about inside of there, but we're starting to see Amazon, Azure, the big cloud players put carbon footprint items inside of their tools. There's a project out there called carbonprint.io it's a Python script. They have .NET scripts and whatnot. You can put it in your app and you can start getting the carbon footprint of what your app is taking. So having that green model, thinking about things. But it's not just about power. There's other things. All these data centers require rare earth minerals, and we only have so many rare earth minerals. And think about all those data centers that are being built. Think about how often do you get a new computer. Think about not just those minerals, but the working conditions that people, the miners in different countries have to go through to pull those out. So it's a little bit of things to think about. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is Sam Altman recently stating that saying please and thank you to your models add up to billions of dollars in operational expenses. So using these models efficiently, I think, is going to be a lot of conversation that we're going to be having in the future. So that was a lot more gloom and doom, sorry. But what can we do to fix? So regulation, we talked a little bit about policing, having privacy laws, antitrust laws, copyright, data owning, democracy, where you get to decide what you do with your data. You opt in, you opt out, you have laws around it, so people just aren't blindsided like Steve, where his artwork was stolen, and we're able to see that. We have a concept called digital socialism, where the data is owned by society. So it's going to be really interesting in the next few years to see where these things are going. But as I mentioned before, we're using AI in an imperfect society. AI does not exist in a vacuum. It's part of society, and it can impact people. So we need to start creating guardrails around this. If we truly believe humans are equal, we need to do better. So let's go back to that alignment problem that I talked about in the very beginning. We now understand that large-scale computing needs resourcing and labor. Even if we built a poorly aligned AGI, its power would not come from technology, but that power would come from humans. The technology is embedded. Power of a hostile AGI would still depend on its relationship to our existing political and social systems. So for now, let's not worry about the Skynets, and let's focus on some of these tangible items that I talked about. So drawing it to a conclusion, can we make ethical AI? I think the bigger question is, who is we? Is it the folks that took an hour on a Friday afternoon to learn more about this topic? Is it the Googles? Is it the OpenAIs? Are we equipped as a society to make ethical changes? So I'll leave folks with a quote. When people talk about ethical AI, instead of talking about Skynet, we should think about working conditions, climate conditions, and how to make the economy serve humans rather than the other way around. So thanks for listening to me, and happy to answer any questions that folks may have. Please reach out on LinkedIn. Excited to meet new people and learn about what you guys are doing. So please, again, LinkedIn, throw me a request. I've been active on LinkedIn here the past couple weeks doing some stuff about some books that I've read, so happy to hear thoughts. So do we have any questions? Question over here. Oh boy, okay. I think, let's see how I can change this but still answer the question. Years ago when I first started getting into the speaking community and getting to know a lot of these people that are here that run SureTrek, this is going back 10 years. The thing that I heard all the time, and this was about the job that you're working at, because people would come to these conferences and they would complain about their job. I can't do this, I can't do this. The thing that we always used to say is you can change or you can change. You can change your job or you can change what we're doing. So I think that folks need to advocate. And there's the whole, I don't want to bring politics into this, but
I'm not trying to do that, but his ethics are different than mine.
Sure.
Her ethics, and it doesn't matter if you grew up Jewish or Catholic or Muslim or Buddhist, right? Next door, you may have grown up the same exact way, but your ethics are a little different.
Sure.
You got one guy saying, cheerleaders are great and they're powerful and leaders, and you got another guy
Yeah.
These kids are doing the same thing, and AI is just a kid.
Yeah.
Compared with parts.
Yeah, and I think it's back to the basics, right? We need to have a mutual respect for individuals and society, and ultimately coming down to doing things that are right, right? We want to make sure that, yes, somebody lost their job, and give them the benefit of the doubt, like, right? Think about remote work, right? If you're not physically able to see somebody working, but you need to give them that freedom and that ability to have the space that they need to work. Any other thoughts, questions? Question?
I'm just curious if you have any experience. I work in enterprise medical imaging, CT, MR, and all of this data, there's almost the presumption that the hospitals and stuff that are acquiring the data own the data. Even if they're anonymizing the name or patient info, et cetera. Just curious if you have experience there or any comments you would.
So the question, just to sum it up, was hospital system that's getting imaging data, whether it's CTs or radiology, and the hospital owning that data. That's a super interesting one that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I agree. That's a topic that I think should be raised, because I think that should be, in my opinion, that should be your data, and you should have, like the laws that there are in the EU about a disclaimer about how that data is used, where it's going. Question back there?
Are you aware of any push to make it opt-in instead of opt-out for this stuff? Because I think that's one of the major.
Yeah, question is, am I aware of anything to opt in versus opt out? I am not, and even the opt out thing is not really even standardized or used very often.
Follow up on that gentleman's comment on the data in, right? And really on the opt-in, opt-out, we start talking about data that goes in. It's not like a database where you can, oh, I want to be removed, pull my data out. Once it's in, it's in.
Yeah.
So do you have any further thoughts or anything like that?
You guys are coming with the hard ones today. So again, summarizing that one, once the data's in, it's in. How do you get it out? I think it comes down to there needs to be some sort of regulation. There needs to be some sort of laws around here. I think that we've seen good laws about, which haven't really helped, about spamming, like phone calls and different things like that. There were efforts made there. I think that there needs to be larger efforts to have those conversations and figure out some sort of registries or some sort of things to be able to pull it off. All right, thanks everybody for coming.